guys, I know it's very hard to learn in the times of overabundance of IT courses, articles and tutorials. So here are my few tips which I am using when I'm learning new information. I think it's very hard to choose and to stay on certain language or framework, especially in those days when everything changes so fast and it's very hard to keep up with the pace of the technology. I started with PHP and JavaScript and MySQL, but now I'm switching to Angular and MongoDB. And for me it was very hard to find a balance on which technologies to focus on, because new one appear and there are a lot of also breaking functionalities, and if you are trying to learn too many things at once, you might not have good progress, and this will discourage you for sure. So I advise you first to choose whether it will be Java, JavaScript, or any other Python language, or just system administration. Just choose one direction. And the second thing is to find the best source of information for you. There are a lot of articles and videos and even courses which are greatly curated by good authors, but it's very important this information to get into your head. It might be the best information, but if you are having problems with the intonation of the author or the pitch or the voice, if it's very hard for you to understand what the author means, you may not like the process, and you might not experience any real progress. And this is not because you don't want to do it, but because somehow the explanation don't fit into what you are preferring to hear. So I encourage you to explore a lot of courses and not to continue with the information which you don't find and if you don't see progress for yourself. Okay, the next thing I would advise is when you have limited your field into certain courses you want to take into certain direction, and you've chosen a preferred author or several authors, try to learn certain bits of code which you can immediately practice and run on your computer. This is extremely important, otherwise I've spent hours and hours at home just learning some theoretical concepts, even though the guys were doing them in their courses, and I was feeling that okay, everything is fine, I have a lot of background and I can do the things immediately. But the moment I was starting to practice those things, they disappeared from my head, and the easier becomes super hard, and I gave up from practicing the current framework, and I realized that okay, for the theoretical point of view I'm prepared, but actually when I'm in the field and I have to run those things, I experienced much more problems. So that's why I advise you just to try the code immediately after you learn it. And this comes to the next tip. You may have access to a good courses which are from 2-3 hours to 20 hours. There is no point of following such long video courses if afterwards all you have in your head is one complete application, but if you're asked to do a real project, you cannot apply your skills there. So that's why I advise you in such cases, if the problem is too big and the learning curve of certain framework, for example, is too steep, you just go ahead and try it for yourself, but try a little parts. For example, if you want to try just a logging form, or just some kind of reactive form in RxJS, just try write a little script which will display a certain field, then try to validate the field, then try to build a more complex form to submit it, and just focus on little actions which may enable you to accomplish bigger tasks afterwards. When you finish this type of task, you may try to connect this form with the API, for example. So you may try to build your self API, or get a predefined online search, or just install certain locally on your machine, and then you see how they interact. And this might be step number 2 after you're sure that you can control the environment from the front end perspective. When you are sure that this step is done and you're more or less can control those REST API services, I advise you to try to build one by yourself. Just grab a code from somewhere and try to modify it a little bit to expand it. And then again, test the REST API using, for example, Postman or simple curl request making, or just use your framework to test the code. The important is to know how the whole process works. For example, the next step will be to get this code and to deploy it. There are certain free services such as Heroku, where you can try to grab the whole version of your code and try to deploy it. And in this way, you can try to manage the overall complexity of building an application. And the next steps are to prevent you from feeling low or even burned out by spending too many hours in front of the computer, learning from those resources, and in the end, actually, you see the payoff is not enough of what you have expected. So it's very important for you to take breaks between the sessions and not mindlessly just watch on the screen some certain things which you don't understand at a certain point. So keep in mind that your attention is spread during the day, and even the professionals, they play for 1 hour, 1.5 hours during the whole day. So if you can concentrate yourself to learn that much, it will be a great accomplishment. Then you can practice the whole day, of course, but the focus training should be when you are super fresh. So choose such time to practice. Then take breaks, go to sleep, go outside, practice some sport, take long walks, and be healthy. So this will allow you to be up to date with the information and to learn a lot from the courses you're interested in. Okay, one last tip which I recommend, which I'm practicing a lot when I'm learning certain new skill. I'm just then making a small video on how I accomplish a certain thing. In this way, I'm just training my brain to explain the things, and then I remember the concepts better. So if you really want to remember the things, just try to record them and re-explain them to your friends. Okay guys, those were the tips from me. Enjoy and happy learning.